Start looking at a section on environmental studies and pollution. Now, this is hugely important, and it also relates to the evolution of man and all the rest of it. So I want to start off this section by reading an article. It's not written by me. I found it on the internet. It's written by somebody called Ike. And what it is I've said to you before that the Earth is about 4.6 billion years old, and then we had all this evolution and everything happened until the last sort of mass extinction about 65 million years ago with the dinosaurs, and then progressively over time we eventually had the development of the human being. But what I just want to say to you is that the human being has only been on this planet, us as the modern human being, 150,000 years. So for those people out there, which relates to this section on how we damage the environment and we're disrespectful and we pollute and we really don't treat this earth with much respect, we must understand that the dinosaurs were said to dominate the planet for about 70 to 80 million years. And even though they dominated the planet for 70 to 80 million years, an environmental change happened. None of them could adapt, so they were all selected against, and they became extinct. So after 70 to 80 million years, they became extinct. So therefore, for all the humans who think they're above all of this, know that we have only been around 150,000 years. That's a blink of time.
1 million,
it's a tiny bit of time in relation. And therefore we know that as we tend to destroy a lot of the environment and destroy the biodiversity and the life that is around us, we must not sit here arrogantly and think, well, doesn't matter if everything else disappears, we'll be fine. Know that if you are the top species of a planet and everything else gets broken down underneath you, you will also potentially suffer massive loss in terms of numbers or potentially extinction. So what I want to do is read this for you, and it's a really nice way to put it into the context of our role as human beings in relation to the whole time span of the planet. So it says the following. It says that planet Earth is 4.6 billion years old. If we condense this inconceivable time span into an understandable concept, we can liken the Earth to a person of 46 years of age. Nothing is known about the first 7 years of this person's life, and whilst only scattered information exists about the middle span, we know that only at the age of 42 did the Earth begin to flower. That means it's actually about 300 million years ago, actually. Dinosaurs and the great reptiles did not appear until a year ago when the planet was 45. Mammals, like ourselves, or not like ourselves, our earlier predecessors, mammals arrived only 8 months ago, and in the middle of last week, man-like apes evolved into ape-like men. At the weekend, the last ice age enveloped the Earth. Modern man has been around for about 4 hours. During the last hour, man discovered agriculture, that's farming. The Industrial Revolution began a minute ago, okay? That means really about 300 years ago. And during those 60 seconds of biological time, man has made a rubbish tip of paradise. He has multiplied his numbers to plague proportions, caused the extinction of masses of plants and animals, ransacked the planet for fuels, and now stands like a brutish infant, gloating over his meteoric rise to ascendancy on the brink of war to end all wars and of effectively destroying this oasis of life in the solar system. It's a little dramatic, that, I do understand, but it really gives an impression of how much impact we have had on this planet in such a short little space of time. Okay, so we know that our environmental studies deal with, as we say, number one, the loss of biodiversity. What has caused the loss of biodiversity? Number one, land degradation. We have lost masses of land because of soil erosion. Topsoil forms from rock, and therefore if that topsoil is simply washed away or blown away, it doesn't just form again. It can take thousands and thousands and thousands of years for topsoil to form. But what have we been doing? We've been overgrazing the land with our sheep and our cattle. We've been pulling out plants due to deforestation. All of that has led to massive, massive soil erosion and land degradation. And remember that when we lose fertile land and land becomes barren, we lose the biodiversity of that land. Bio-life diversity, all the different plants and animals that need to exist in a particular area in order for it to survive. Plus, the other focus of our syllabus is the fact that we have made a massive, like it says over here, we've made a rubbish tip of paradise. There is a massive amount of pollution on the planet, water, land, air, radiation, all of it, and we need to start looking at ways. Well, we've already been looking at ways, but we need to implement them once and for all so that we can do some damage control on our planet. Okay. So the first question I want to look at is, the table below shows the results of an investigation carried out by learners at 5 different places, A, B, C, and D, and E along a river. So once again, please always look at your resource material. Do not go straight to the questions. So let's see what my resource material says. I'm looking at the conditions of the river. In other words, we're looking at all of this from A all the way to E, where I can see that it started off, the water was very, very clean, and progressively, by the time I got to E, our water was very, very dirty. In relation to that, I'm looking at these 3 species of organism. How many green algae were there, fish, or a trout, and of course water weeds. And I can see that their numbers change in accordance with how polluted the water is. So let's look at our questions. It says, state the hypothesis that the learners set out to investigate in this particular experiment. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the amount of pollution in relation to the prevalence of these 3 organisms, the green algae, the fish, and the water weed. Remember that what is a hypothesis? You always get these in your test. It is plain and simply a statement of fact that you will then do an experiment around to determine whether your hypothesis was correct or incorrect. So for this particular experiment, the best hypothesis would be that the amount of green algae, fish, and water weeds is dependent upon how much pollution is found in the water. And then I will do my experiments to determine whether my hypothesis was correct or incorrect. Next question. Describe the relationship between the number of green algae and the condition of the river water. I look at my resource. Here is my green algae over here. And I can see that when it was clean, the green algae was scarce. And as the water goes from clean, fairly clean, dirty to very dirty, we can see the dirtier the water got, or the more polluted the water got, the more abundant became our green algae in that particular environment. Give a reason for the relationship indicated in question 1.4.2. Well, that is the area of work that you know that is called eutrophication. Often this kind of pollution that we're talking about are often chemicals and pollutants and pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers. They are also pollution, and they cause algal blooms, eutrophication. The algae grow in massive quantities on the surface of the water. The sun doesn't penetrate through. Anything underneath doesn't photosynthesize. Everything else dies underneath. The bacteria take over, and we are left with major, major pollution. The Hartbeespoort Dam, this happened, I think it's probably 20 years ago for the first time, and we're still trying to sort it out because of our green algae. Write down the letters only of the places in the river where trout were found. Again, I look at my particular resource, and I see that trout are only found many and scarce and completely absent as the water becomes more polluted. Why were they found only in those areas? Because remember, fish do not live well in polluted water. Their gills tend to get blocked, and therefore they're unable to pick up oxygen from the water or put their carbon dioxide in the water. So therefore they die under those conditions. Okay.
All righty, great.